speaking of other crazy news, which is a continuation of this whole LGBTQ plus social justice push in our public school system, we have a TikTok video here that exposes the hotbed issue of this gender identity theory being pushed upon our kids. We have a trans educator. Sorry, be specific here, because we don't want to mispronoun or misgender or whatever it may be. A queer trans educator posted a video on TikTok to justify why preschoolers need to learn about sexuality. If you are prepared for 2 minutes and 8 seconds of blood boiling content, you're going to watch this video with me. I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen a portion of it. It was like, we got to do a show on it, folks. We got to do a show on it. And as you can imagine, it's coming from libs of TikTok. So without further ado, folks, let's go ahead and let's sit through this video together, and we'll comment on it as we go.
Hi, I'm Linz. I'm a queer and trans educator and children's performer, creator, writer. You might know me from my web series Queer Kid Stuff, where I talk about gender and sexuality stuff for all ages with a preschool audience in mind. And I write for preschool television, do a lot of stuff in early childhood ed. The short answer to this question is that we need to talk to preschoolers about sexuality and gender because any later is too late. The long answer to this is that this is the age when children...
It's too late. We've already missed our opportunity to try to mess with their heads and make them think that they're a female even though they're a biological male. That's crazy. Like I said, we've called these people groomers. We're not saying they want to sexually touch them or anything like that, but they're grooming them with these certain identities, gender identities, these theories, all these things starting at preschool now. We talked about how in New Jersey, they are literally showing second graders cartoon videos and teaching them how to masturbate and play with themselves. I mean, this is where our education system has gone. I'm a teacher, by the way. I'm a teacher, and this is what's going on. And I'm baffled. And I'm sitting here going, what the hell? I would never feel comfortable talking about sexuality to my students. That's not my job. Granted, I'm a math teacher. But either way, man, sorry, that's for your parents. You go ask your parents that. I don't even want to have those conversations in my classroom. Don't have them in my classroom. You can have them with your families and ask them what you should do and get the help you need with them, not with me.
Start to self-identify. They start to understand themselves and in relation to the world around them. They need to understand.
That's way different. Having your brain development try to understand the world around you. That's vastly different than actually understanding who you are and your identity. Like, we all know there's certain gender norms that are out there in terms of behavior. Okay, like for example, men will tend to mow the lawn or do certain yard work or roofing and things like that. Men tend to choose that type of field, where women tend to choose something different. So this whole idea of them figuring themselves out is a bunch of hocus pocus. For those that have teenager children, they're still trying to figure themselves out. I teach mostly seniors. There's a few juniors here and there. I see it in real time. They're trying to figure themselves out. Not talking in terms of gender. They're just trying to figure out who they are as a person. What is their purpose in the world? Not going, am I a male or am I a female? They can look at their appendages and be able to make that judgment call, because it turns out sexual gender, your biological gender, whatever you want to call it, sex, gender, same thing practically. You can, in a nutshell, be able to objectively identify what you are, but not according to them. None of this is objective. It's just all what you think.
And different gender diversity, because the Academy of Pediatrics actually says that most children have a solid understanding of their gender identity by the age of 4, and that is inclusive of cis as well as trans and non-binary kids. Preschoolers need to understand sexuality because of the world.
That data is just it's scanty. There's not much there. Like, if you're talking about those that are straight, we have a lot of data on that. But this whole idea now of this push from the pediatrics on trans stuff, it's so scanty, it's ridiculous.
Around them. They might not identify with a sexuality yet, but their parents do, and their friends' parents do. And in order to understand different family structures,
it's objective,
and other people's experiences and develop empathy, they need to understand queerness.
Oh, so it's empathy. So if you're not understanding this in your household or your children, and your kid just one day says, I'm a female, when in actuality it's a biological male, you don't have empathy, because that kid, preschool age, before 5 years old, knows exactly who they are to a T. Hell, they'll even know what they want to be when they grow up. You know that? How many of you have go, I'm going to be an astronaut? You know, and it turns out like maybe you're an accountant now, or maybe you're a police officer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to fly to Mars. I'm going to be the president of the United States. No, you're not. So there's a lot of wild things kids think of. And yes, we can entertain some of them. But when you're talking about sexuality and messing with the kid's mind, probably not a great idea. But this is what they want to push in your school system without you knowing, folks. It's wild. It's freaking wild.
Exposed to sexuality every day. Just look at literally any Disney movie where there is heterosexual kissing. It is normal to talk to kids about straight relationships and straight couples and nuclear heterosexual families. So why should queerness and queer families and queer sexuality be any different? Kids as young as preschoolers need to understand gender and sexuality in order to develop empathy for others and to be able to understand themselves in relationship to the world around them and the people around them.
It's crazy.
Once you get past this age, it's a lot harder to undo and complicate the ideas of the kind of cis heteronormative world that these kids and we are in.
It just makes it harder to indoctrinate them the older they get, because now their frontal lobe is slowly developing, and it gives them the opportunity to be able to reason and critically think. And so when we reach that point, we've lost our opportunity to groom them now and transition them. If that doesn't horrify you folks, I don't know what does. It's crazy. A few of the comments here are, keep groomers away from my children. Yeah. Somebody wrote, absolutely sicko, absolute insanity. It really, I mean, it is something else. And I don't know why there is such a strong push from the LGBTQ community to do this to children. It is wild to me. If you want to be 18 years old and pursue that on your own, or you are a teenager and your parents somehow want you to pursue that or whatever it may be, sure. We're talking about the public school system. This is not something that, as far as I'm aware, is within state standards, or at least in Common Core standards. I'm not aware of trans identity indoctrination being pushed on kids. If it is, could somebody cite me the actual standard? Because I don't see the standard. And if you're curious, you can just go to Common Core website. You can go California Common Core standards and try to find it yourself. And find it. I mean, you could go all the way to kindergarten. I just don't see the standards of the stuff they're talking about. Furthermore, as a teacher, there are times, and I want to be clear on this because I hound the LGBTQ community a lot. There are instances where students will ask you questions. Okay, students, you're with them like an hour and a half a day, sometimes 45 minutes, an hour and a half, depending if your block or regular schedule. They will ask you random questions. Sometimes their questions are inappropriate. Look, they're teenagers or younger. They're going to ask you inappropriate questions. It will 100% happen every school year. But you as the adult have to be able to not engage with that conversation that's inappropriate. You should let them know, hey, that question's inappropriate. I don't feel comfortable answering that. If you want to pursue that question, you can either ask your parent or guardian, or depending on the issue, if it's like depression or something like that, you know, I'm more than happy to write you a slip to go see the counselor or something of that nature. You don't have to indulge every single question a student asks you. And a lot of questions that are kind of personalized aren't really or shouldn't really be answered. Again, I don't feel comfortable with that. Sometimes you can laugh it off and be like, oh, you know, hey, it's a little awkward. That's not the discussion we're having right now, whatever it may be. But for some reason, they want to just, oh, you know, let's have a question answered to a freaking 4-year-old about gender identity. Oh, you know, I'm queer trans. Do you know what that means? No, they don't know what that means. They don't even know what queer means. They barely know what straight means. There's no way in hell they're going to know what queer means or trans or gender identity. They barely know the alphabet. They barely know how to count. And you're going to try and have these deep philosophical, we'll put philosophical in air quotes for those listening, philosophical questions about gender with them. It's not so much philosophical, folks, really. I mean, it's been the same thing all of human existence. There's male and female, and that's it. Sure, there's certain abnormalities and outliers that take place within sex, okay? But you're talking fractions of a percent. But this whole thing that there's basically an unlimited amount of genders is just mind-boggling to me. So I'm not going to entertain this that much more. I just wanted to bring you updates that it's still going on, that we still need to be aware of it amidst of all the other crap that the progressive left and Democrats are doing. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.